some signings. And don't forget the scavenger hunt too. We still have plenty of the medals left. If you find all your stamps, these are super cool. This one's actually mine. I finished mine this morning, and no one told me where they were. Duncan wouldn't tell anybody where they were, so we actually had to go find them. Programs, if you haven't got one yet, it's $3. It's great. It talks about all the presenters and the panels. And the displays, the cardboard displays are 20 bucks. Well worth it. Seriously, well worth it. You should get one. And they should be outside in the hall when we're done. So, and that's it.
Do you have a question? Okay, I guess we're good to go. We consider ourselves the crafting A team. This is Amy Jenkins. This is Alyssa Loney. And this is Sjoberg, that baby. So our names all start with the letter A. We kind of played up on that. We have Mr. T vests on. So
we've bedazzled them too.
Yes, we've bedazzled them as well.
We're model.
Animal model.
Thank you.
So we're going to take you on a journey to see some of the strangest things you've never seen, probably.
Right.
In Star Wars collecting, so let's just get started. So we're going to introduce ourselves by our favorite collectibles that we have in our collections, whether there's something that we've made or something that we found over the years. And my favorite collectible is this 22-inch tall Wampa. It's articulated arms, and I got it at the Stitch Wars exhibit at the Burton Bear Gallery in Fort Lauderdale, Florida last year. And I beat out a certain Steve from Northern California on it too. Yeah. Don't think he knows that.
Okay, we won't tell him.
This is one of my favorites. This is the R2-D2 Mickey ear hat. I made this for Celebration 5 and made 100 of them and gave them out to friends. This was before Disney made their R2 hat, and theirs arrived on shelves in less than 6 months after mine.
Hi, I'm Ann Jenkins. Some of you know I'm married to Duncan Jenkins. So a few years ago, I like to craft. I've always liked crafting. But a couple of years ago, I started kind of hitting the Star Wars crafting. I think if it's a nice, affordable way to add to his collection. So I crochet, and this is an amigurumi Chewbacca that I made for him for Valentine's Day. And so I accessorized it with little hearts in the bandolier pouch. So he's one of my favorites.
So as you can imagine, fan-made collectibles is a very broad topic. I mean, it's just about as broad as saying that you want to collect something that's Star Wars. So to compartmentalize this a little bit, we tried to narrow down our field with the definition that Star Wars fan-made items tend to be unlicensed, they're made by hand, and they commemorate Star Wars in their own unique way. Often they serve a function to fill a collecting void. Sometimes you want to have Mickey Mouse ear hats before they're made, and you just make them. So these items always reflect a passion for Star Wars. I'm sure many of you have gone down to Rancho Obi-Wan and seen some of the fan-made items. They're fantastic. Some things we aren't going to cover in the panel just because we don't have time, but they are fan-made and they're also wonderful things. Costumes, prop replicas, art prints. But we're going to try and cover just about everything else we can in the time that we have. So we'll just get going.
Sure. We're trying to think of a clever way to compartmentalize crafts. It's kind of, as Amy said, it's so broad, it was kind of hard to narrow things down, but we came up with the following categories: ceramic, metallic, plastic, fabric, organic, and terrific.
And at the end of the panel, we'll talk about tips on buying and selling, and also take any questions.
So this is our first category, ceramic. And I don't know if you've been in the vendor hall, exhibit hall, and you've seen some of these very peculiar looking Darth Vader or R2 items. And often they're always different. And what they were greenware that you could get in the 1970s. So they're actually vintage fan-made items. You would go to the store, you would cut shapes into them, and then you would get them fired. I actually got the Darth Vader. It was sitting on my desk at work one day. It came in, and some lady had left it on my desk. She knew I like Star Wars.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Star Wars.
The R2 is from Duncan's collection. I don't know its story. Does it have a story? No story. We found it.
We're just going to skip right ahead into metallic. The Heineken Beer 2 D2 has made the internet collecting rounds, and I think it just kind of speaks for itself. It's made out of scrap metal, really clever, and I think it's a flashlight head that it has on it.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Falcon is something that you can get online fairly frequently on eBay or Etsy. Etsy we'll mention quite a bit, so I'll just explain it now. Etsy is a fan-made website, so it's like an eBay, only it's not an auction house. And my friend told me it was like Betsy without the B. But yeah. So it's basically a website that you go to buy and sell handmade crafts. And they have over 13,000 Star Wars items at any given time. So it's a great place to go if you're looking to buy some things.
This ship, it comes out of the ring, but it's made out of aluminum. It was made by a guy in Mexico City, and this is kind of his passion. He makes a lot of different Star Wars things out of this aluminum. Steve Sansweet has a lot of these in his collection also. Moving on to plastic, a lot of those of you with kids are probably very familiar with perler beads. It's a great way to occupy children's time. You take the little plastic beads and you put them in a frame, and then with adult supervision, you melt the plastic on one side and then flip it over, and with an iron melt the other side. So I don't have children, but I have lots of nieces and nephews, and so we spend a lot of time doing perler beads. So I was inspired one day, and I thought, well, I can make Star Wars characters. Why didn't I think of that before? So I spent the summer creating all these little Star Wars characters. There's a few of them in display next door in a little cantina scene, if you want to check those out. So it's a great affordable craft, and you just let your imagination run wild.
And Anne's been making character perler bead pins.
Yeah, just attach a pin back on the back or an O-ring, and you've got a necklace or a pin just instantaneously.
Something for your lanyard.
Yeah. Oh, there's the cantina. Yeah.
It comes with its own diorama.
Yeah. And I made slots in the bottom of the thing so you can position the characters in different, stages, and you can put Luke and Ben and Chewie all around the table if you want. So it's a very playable toy.
So these are some of the other kind of things that you see kind of in this genre, polymer clays. And these are two items I found online. The one on the left is actually from Etsy, so this was something that's only selling at that website. Absolutely adorable.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the other piece is actually, they're about trading card size. It was made to put together to be a mural, so
Oh, very cool.
it's pretty incredible. So these are finds from Etsy again, and I actually gave these as a gift to Anne when she came to visit me in Seattle a while ago. So she has the It's a Trap necklace with the matching earrings, and the figure from that came from the Wizards of the Coast minifigures. You could saw off the stand at the bottom and turn it into jewelry.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about, just to kind of keep in mind if you're thinking about crafting something, sometimes you can take something that's already crafted and just turn it into something else, like a necklace or earrings or something else, give it a different kind of life.
Right, I think at the next celebration, you'll see a lot of star top necklaces and charm bracelets.
Another thing making the rounds and extremely popular right now are My Little Ponies. And there is a whole market of people that make reproduction ponies. They modify them and they add costumes to them. There's a whole series of Star Wars My Little Ponies. The one on the left is actually my collection, and you can't tell in the picture, but it's fully bedazzled. It has rhinestones on it to reflect the star pattern and Starfield's logo.
And the one on the right is the Slave Leia pony. And it was done by an artist, and I think that one sold in 2009, I think it was, and she sold it for close to $400. So.
And then the ones on the bottom, they're ones that I did. The Han Solo is now Lone Star. I did some repainting on a Mighty Mugs figure. It was actually an Indiana Jones. I made a checkered vest and gave him a Schwartz ring. And the Mog actually was an Asajj Ventress that I just added some fun fur to make him barb the Mog from Spaceballs. These are some figures that turned up online. The 3 are in my collection. The 4th one, the Darth Vader's, in my friend's collection, so I had him loan me a picture. Artists made these for these kids to get them interested into Star Wars, but also get them interested into the little people figures that Fisher Price made. And they just weren't interested, so he ended up selling them online, and I managed to luck out. But they're adorable. They're actually on display next door in our cabinet.
These right here are jelly troopers. They're by a friend of mine, Selena. She sculpted the figure, molded it, and then hand cast the resin herself in a garage, and then she painted them. And so they're completely handmade from start to finish. All done.
She put them up online and they sold out in a couple minutes.
Yeah, usually when she puts her jelly troopers online, they sell out in less than 2 minutes. Her whole store was jammed. She sells, they're very expensive, $10 to $20 a piece. And once she puts them up, she'll just announce them on Twitter, and 2 minutes later, they're gone.
So segueing right into the fabric universe of fan-made collecting, we have an item here, 2 items from Etsy, actually. Both made out of polar fleece. Polar fleece is a fairly inexpensive fabric you can get at just about any fabric store. And more frequently, you see them being made to make plush figures. This is a fully articulated Lando Calrissian. The last time I checked, he's still available on Etsy. And the Ewok is actually in my collection, because I also collect Ewoks.
These are 2 plushes. These belong to my brother, Andy Loney. These were crafted by a woman in Australia. At the time he got them probably around Celebration 3, maybe even Celebration 2. And there were no plushes of the Max Rebo band. So he asked her if she would make them, and she did, and the Slice Noodles is just as cute as can be. And they're actually very large. They stand probably a good 2 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet.
This is one of my favorite arenas of crafting. It's fun fur. And 3 items here. The one in the center is a piece that I made for the presenters here on this table. And then there's 1 remaining piece in the display cabinet, which I'm going to be gifting to Steve Sansby, who just doesn't know it yet. It's called Chewbacca Goes to Celebration. And so he's got his little orange fan from Celebration last year, and he's got his lanyard to get him into the convention. Kind of looks like he's had a full day of shopping. He bought the Yoda ears.
And when it gets too bright for him, put on his little glasses.
And the item on the far right is a tooth fairy pillow. So if you have any kids and they like Star Wars, there's a lady online that makes Chewbacca tooth fairy pillows, and she will put the initials of the child's name on the pouch, and that's where you put the tooth, and then it hangs on the door. I thought it was pretty clever. It looks like a pretty wacky Chewbacca.
And if you do have kids, be careful that you never have my father buy one of these pouches for your children, because he will tell them that the tooth fairy will leave a $100 bill if they use that pouch, and he's done that to several families already. Of course, he has given the family the $100 bill to put in it, but he doesn't tell the parents ahead of time and completely shocks them.
The Ewok on the left against in my collection, it was made for a website that was doing fan-made countdown to Star Wars, unofficial Star Wars Day, May the 4th. And I managed to luck out and get that piece.
Now, is Fun Fur a name of a product, or is that what you just call Fun Fur?
Yeah, any kind of fabric that has fur to it.
Okay.
So, like any of these items here on the table.
Right.
And this item, which I just picked up at the convention center downstairs from Lindsay Bush, Matt Bush's wife. She makes these gorgeous puppets. And this is the Chewbacca she made. He's got a polar fleece bandolier and fun fur, but adorable. Just again to show you can get fan-made collectibles for Star Wars just about anywhere.
Amy, do you have to hand sew most of the fur items? You can't really.
It depends how sturdy your sewing machine is.
Okay.
Yeah, if your sewing machine can't cut it, then you probably need to go with some really thin fur. But actually the Chewbacca I hand stitched completely.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are the banthas, 2 of which I made, 1 of which Bonnie Burton's made. And Bonnie wasn't able to join us at Celebration this year. But the bantha on the far left is one you might recognize from StarWars.com. She did a crafting section on there. And she encouraged people to make their own banthas. And I have done that. It's a very easy craft, and you can find the instructions online on how to make one. It's a good way to get started on a fan-made collectible. From that, I was inspired to do my own bantha ornament, which is much smaller. It's only about that big. And I mailed those out to friends last Christmas as ornaments to hand out. And then I made him even smaller and made a small pin for people's lanyards at this convention. I only made 25 of them. People have been asking me for banthas all weekend, but I've run out. So only so many pins I can make.
Not enough time.
Felt crafting is probably the most inexpensive thing to do to add crafts to your collection.
Yavin medals.
Yeah, we made Yavin medals yesterday in the collecting lounge.
We had it was the female collector get together and brought felt and thread needles and sewed medals for us.
Only took about 40 minutes. So these items are all various things you'll find online as inspiration. The Yoda mouse at the top you might recognize from Steve Sansweet's 1,000 Collectibles book. And you might think, oh no, Steve has it, there's no way I'll ever get one. But she actually sells these online. She's in the Netherlands, so you can actually buy a set for your own collection.
Is that on Etsy?
It's on Etsy again, yeah. And the Jawa and the Chewbacca pins are actually vintage. I found them at an antique store. The Jawa its body is made out of a walnut shell, and the eyes are bedazzled gold eyes, and they glitter, which inspired me to make a Jawa pin that I handed out yesterday, that I have since run out.
Still under felt. When I craft, I tend to get inspiration from non-Star Wars crafts, and then I think about how I can turn them into Star Wars crafts. So on the left you'll see I got a book called Felties, and the author shows you how to make little felt animals. So I looked through the book, and I was wanting to make something for Celebration. So I thought, I love Jawas. So I thought, well, I can make a Jawa. So I kind of used part of her wolf pattern along with her pirate mouse bandolier, and the 2 of them became the Jawa you see on the left. I said that wrong. The book on the right, Jawa on the left. Anyway, so if you're a crafter, it's really easy to take something you already know how to do and just turn it into Star Wars.
These are a few items from my collection. The one on the right is a pincushion that I actually made and have since sold to a collector in England who collects Millennium Falcons. The side of it said, "That's no moon!" exclamation point. So it's the Falcon approaching the Death Star, and also has the functionality of being a pincushion at the same time. The 2 cats are made by a lady called Fat Cat Collectibles, and she's been making Star Wars pincushions that are cats. They're extremely well made, and you can't really see here, but the Han Solo gun is actually a pin, and I have it on display next door. Again, with the felt crafts, my friend has been bugging me forever that there's no Acmina figure that's ever been made from the holiday special. So I took it as a challenge to make an entire set of holiday special ornaments. And 3 of these items I gave out to collectors. I gave some to Steve Sansweet, I gave some to Gus, and some to Duncan and Ann. And then the rest were put together in an entire holiday special tree that I handed out at one of our Sarlacc, my collecting club meet and greets at the holiday time. Bruce.
Is Bruce here?
Is Bruce in the room?
Oh, so you got Bruce.
Bruce is also known as the Velvet Geek, and we just had to put this in here. I know we said no artists, but technically the medium just lends itself to crafting so well. He paints vintage action figures on velvet material.
These are velvet paintings.
Velvet paintings. yes. You might have been downstairs into the Steve Sand Suite Rancho if you want to experience and seeing the velvet Akbar painting, which I think is fabulous. Needle felting is another medium that you see quite a bit.
It's a pretty new type of craft, isn't it? Or it's now getting more popularity?
It's becoming more popular. You see more geeky items being made out of felting.
And this is a lot harder craft to do.
Yes, this is definitely for the advanced crafter.
Explain what needle felting really is.
It's just a bunch of raw wool.
Take raw wool,
Yeah.
and a barbed needle, and you poke it until it starts to congeal together and make a shape.
So the R2D2 on the left is actually over a foot tall, and it probably took the guy a couple months to make, but it's from an artist called Wool Buddy. He used to work for Lucasfilm actually, and he had it on display at his booth at San Diego Comic-Con this year. And I couldn't afford it, but I could afford his younger brother, so I just had to ask. It's another good example of, if you don't see something like from the dealer, but you like the art, ask, you never know what you'll find.
Right.
And the Ewok is something I found online, and I just think it's durability.
Very cute. Going back to the vintage era, this is an example of a vintage craft. This was a latch hook kit from the early Star Wars line. This is the Empire Strikes Back. This was Darth Vader. It's in our collection at home. I personally do not enjoy latch hooking, so I will not be tempted to open this and secretly do it at night or anything. Duncan doesn't have to worry. So,
But they had other characters, right?
yeah, you can get several different other patterns.
So they're around if you need a pattern to go by. My friend Yvette made me the R2D2 purse in exchange for a Chewbacca sack boy that I made for her out of crochet. And it was kind of like a Christmas gift exchange. We need to do it again. I think Yvette's in the audience. And then our friend Chris had made these coffee warmers. They're knitted Yoda and Chewbacca coffee warmers, which I thought was pretty adorable. The bandolier actually has a pouch in it. You can put little coins in it. And then the miniature Yodas, that's a 3 3/4 inch action figure, so they're kind of to scale with that, which is extremely small.
Yeah, very small.
But knitting is getting more and more popular for these things.
This is another one of my crafts. Again, I show you on the right-hand side what my original craft was. I was doing bibs for some of the new additions in our family. And again, my Star Wars brain kicked in and I said, how can I make these Star Wars bibs? So on the left you see the C-3PO and R2-D2 that I created from the original pattern. These are the amigurumi, which is the Japanese crochet. Very popular type of fiber art that you see a lot of. I got this pattern off of Etsy. I suddenly can't remember her name. Lucy Collins, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Anyway, she puts the pattern online, so you can buy the pattern and make it yourself. And this is a set of the Star Wars characters that she created.
And I think she has like 10 other characters too. If you like the prequel, she has those as well. This is a case of inspiration and then final product. I've always loved the Kinder Egg hippos. I have a couple of them. I have 2 of them in my collection. These 2 actually pictured. And I was inspired to make the larger plush ones because I know Kinder made larger plush hippos, but I was never able to acquire them. So I got the pattern down below that would have made the hippo that you see, and then I decided to make them blue. And I used the flower pattern on the pattern that's shown down below, the purple one, and I put it in Leia's hair, just like this. I figured. Yeah. And then I just sewed up some clothes for him, and there you go. These are examples, again, of stuff you can find online. This is a Boba Fett purse and a Star Wars pillow, and it took me forever to figure out where they got the fabric from, but I finally found out it was the sleeping bag lining from the vintage sleeping bag.
And even walking around the convention this time, you can see so many people with handmade cloth items, whether it's purses or clothing, bags. They're all taking the fabric and making their own things out of them, the old sheets.
The great thing is there's a lot of new fabric in the stores, the craft stores, so you can buy, Star Wars fabric new now if you don't have access to a vintage sheet.
And they're licensed fabrics. Last year we had 3 different kinds of fabrics, including a fabric print of vintage Star Wars comics, which is great if you're a collector and you want to make something that's,
Looks old.
something that you collect.
Yeah.
And then this year they've introduced 3 new fabrics just about 2-3 weeks ago at most of the craft stores that are around. So
Through Joann's.
Through Joann's, yeah. You have Joann's near you. One thing you see a lot online are aprons. There's R2-D2 aprons, Darth Vader aprons. This is probably the most unique one I've seen recently, which is a X-Wing apron that someone's made, obviously inspired by. And then the table runner that you see there.
My mother-in-law likes to sew as well, and so she made the table runners on the left with some of that fabric that we were talking about that you can find at Joann's. Again, just an example of the inspiration. I made Raggedy Ann dolls one Christmas for all my little nieces. I had one nephew at the time. I didn't think he'd be very excited about Raggedy Ann, but he was a Star Wars fan. So using the Raggedy Ann pattern as a guide, I created the Raggedy Yoda that you see. He even says, "I love you," on his chest, just like Raggedy Ann.
And he too is on display next door, so you should really check him out. My friend Mike DeMaine in Seattle is a Millennium Falcon collector. That's all he collects. And he's literally run out of room in his collecting room to the extent that he only has the floor and ceiling remaining. And his wife is an incredible artist. She's painted onto canvas this Millennium Falcon from a screenshot that she took and printed off. She used a grid system and she laid it out on canvas, duck cloth. She painted it and then she coated it in wax 3 times and is now a floor cloth in his collecting room. So he now no longer has a floor to put collectibles on. These are some examples of embroidery, which is just taking some DMC thread and sewing onto fabric. Love in a Sandwich is an artist online who does this interesting process of cutting out felt and making overlays and then hand stitching it together to create an image. So the R2 and the Chewbacca were made by her. And the example on the far right, the Obi-Wan, I also collect Obi-Wan, I thought it was a little neat because he has a purple saber instead of the correct color, but I won't go there.
When you craft, you can embellish it however
This is
you want.
true. Yeah. So it's just something that's been hand stitched again, and then they glued a zipper around the outside as an embellishment, so I thought that was kind of unique. These are examples of cross-stitch pieces. The Akbar sampler, if you look really close, there's a rabbit with death eyes. So hence it's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. And the Tauntaun is actually something I've been working on for over a year. It's a pattern that you can get online. I have yet to complete it, but I hope to someday. And that's kind of what the finished product would look like. Leather crafting and just miscellaneous stuff, organic stuff.
Organic stuff, yeah.
The Admiral Akbar leather item is actually a whiskey flask. The backside said it's a trap, and the piece that holds on the cap was actually bored through, and it is a Pez dispenser head. So I didn't have more detailed photos on it, but that's the full story on that one.
The items on the left are, again, a vintage craft. They were the stained glass kits that you could get where they give you the frame and the little plastic beads and you put them in all the little compartments and then you would melt them in the oven. So,
and you can still find them, I'm sure the exhibitors, in fact I've seen a couple of the exhibit halls, so
Right.
if you want to get started on a vintage craft, you can do that.
And those were licensed, weren't they?
Yes.
Yes, they were licensed. These little characters are made out of clay. Han Solo is there just for comparison so you can see how small they really are. We acquired them at a convention in Mexico City. The lady who made them would do them right on the spot, so you could ask for any character you wanted. She would sculpt the clay around a straight pin, so she would put a straight pin through the cork and then she would sculpt with the clay into the character right around that pin. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, to get so much detail on something that small was really impressive.
These are just some paper items. The Admiral sack bar is one of Bonnie Burton's favorite crafts. And I had, I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to make a sack bar with Bonnie, but this is one of the ones I made, and I thought he needed a little mini sack bar to play with. That's great, so I gave him a small one. The Darth Vader snowflakes is something that they featured on StarWars.com. There's an artist that comes up, it seems to come up with new ones. It's been the second year now, going into the third.
And it was a father that was making them for his kids. He just started cutting snowflakes.
Yeah, designing them on the internet to find out, how they were all shaped.
And the patterns are free.
Yes.
You can go to his website and download the patterns and make your own paper doll snowflakes. And it is from the tradition of making paper dolls. It's one sheet of paper folded with cuts.
And then pinatas are just a great item. Steve has a Tauntaun pinata in his Rancho Obi-Wan display downstairs. And the Jabba the Hutt one is just an example of that. My friend Ryan has this in his collection. It is in computer embroidery, so it's something you can put into the computer and it'll spit it out in about an hour with the design that you want. And he was bemoaning the fact that there just wasn't enough Star Wars toilet paper, so he had this embroidered, and you can buy them online actually. So, if you're looking for some toilet paper to finish off your Star Wars bathroom, this would be.
This right here is an auction paddle. I made this paddle. It was 2008. It was at San Diego Comic-Con. During San Diego Comic-Con, a company decided Morphe's auction and who else was it? I know for reading it. But they decided to hold a Star Wars auction during San Diego Comic-Con. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to make an auction paddle. So I just printed off a little R2 line art and blew it up using a projection system, traced it, started making them, and glued a popsicle stick to the bottom of them. And it stands about that tall, put some glitter on it, and we all had auction paddles for the whole auction.
Everything looks better with glitter.
That's right.
That's right.
Kind of a similar item, StarWars.com also has masks. You can do the same thing. You can download a Star Wars character mask and cut it out and put it on a popsicle stick. So if you're having a kid's party or something like that, you can all give them Star Wars masks.
So these are 2 holiday cards that I've sent out to people in the past, but I've gotten them from other folks online. The Lando card on the inside says you've Landoed on the nice list. And the other design which I didn't show is a Tauntaun eating a snowflake, and it said Happy Hockey Days. So if you're uninspired by the cards, you might find it at Hallmark. There's always alternatives out there. These 2 items are made by a man in Texas who's actually a voice actor, and that's his primary job, and then in his free time he does painting. And I've actually seen the birdhouse in Vincent Parker's collection. If you watched Collection Intervention about 2 weeks ago, this was in the background shot, so now I know who bought it away from me. It actually lights up and it has sound, so if you did have this in your backyard, you'd probably freak out the birds because they go inside and they go, oh my gosh, what's that? And then the R2-D2 Santa hat is actually an ornament that I have in my collection now. This is an example of just painting on wood. The nesting dolls is something that I've always wanted to have in my collection. And I thought, I collect Star Wars, so I need to have nesting dolls. And I worked with an artist in Russia and had them. It was a little bit of a risk because I was like, well, who am I sending my money to? But it worked out for the best, and I ended up with a wonderful set of Clone Wars nesting dolls. The other items are by a guy named Kashi Clan, and he makes these on Etsy. They are Star Wars figures. They're made with an egg shape, a small wood egg shape, and then a circular sphere shape that has a flat bottom. And he connects them with a dowel, and then he paints them with acrylic paints.
They're very unique and a very fun item to have.
You've been working on a complete collection, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
make sure okay, sorry, I skipped ahead. I knew I skipped ahead. Speaking of glitter and the fantastic things that come out of glitter art, this is an image of a Star Wars comic book that was blown up onto a wood board. The lines were all traced out, and they glued out each section and then put in color corresponding glitter to match. It is a complete 12 by 12 inch glitter mural. A lot of detail, a lot of time went into making it. And then something that didn't take very much time or detail is the Star Wars hand finger puppet diorama. I took the Jabba the Hutt idea from the Star Wars craft book that Bonnie Burton made, and then I'm like, well, you know, you can't have Jabba the Hutt without a Jabba's throne room, so I went ahead and used some foam core board and some felt, and I glued it all together. And then I made a new law, and then I made a Wampa head with crossed out googly eyes because he's dead.
That's often the problem with crafts, is that once you make one thing, you start thinking of all the accessories that it needs, and you just keep going, and it's hard to stop.
And so this is just an example of the wondrous things that can be made out of stained glass. This is a Boba Fett lamp that's completely comprised out of stained glass, and it also has some functionality to it in case you need some light in your collection room. The other two items are things you could probably hang in the window in your collection room for some display. So this is a story that I have on this one. It's from Arnie and Marjorie, and if you listen to Star Wars Action News, they explain the story behind this. They were going to their local collecting convention, and they weren't expecting to get anything really special about the Star Wars. And right when they came in the door, there was a guy that was making these 3.5 foot tall, scaled up Star Wars Lego figures. And they're made out of wood and PVC pipe. The Vader has a Hasbro mask, and this is the voice changer, Darth Vader, I think. Right. So they ended up wanting to buy all of them, but the problem was they had a convertible with them. So then the problem became, where do they put these figures? So they managed sitting with them on their way home to take them with them. One of the perplexing things a lot of collectors have is, you know, we tend to get a lot of the same thing from people. Remember the Pez dispensers? I think we all probably have a couple dozen of them. And you know, what do you do with these Pez dispensers? I mean, I'm sure you have some doubles. So here's some examples of things you can do with Pez dispensers. This one's been cut in half, and you have a USB stick out of it, so it's a collectible and it has some functionality. You can cut the heads off, and you can actually make them charms. You can make necklaces out of them.
And you can bedazzle them.
And you can bedazzle them. The R2 is in my collection now. This is an example of trying to save some money through crafting. You may have seen the museum replicas, I think, makes the lightsaber lamps. And someone's trying to save some money, so they went to IKEA and they bought the $20 lamp. And then they bought the cheapy Hasbro $7 saber. They sawed off the bottom, they took out the center part of the blade, they cut the cord on the lamp, they put the saber on, and voila, a little soldering later, and they have their own $27 lightsaber lamp, which is almost cooler because it actually uses toys. Right. Because it fits the collecting room.
This is from Bonnie Burton's book. She's got a great craft book. We'll talk a little bit about it later, but she shows you different crafts that you can make at home, and this is her AT-AT planter.
Duct tape AT-AT.
Duct tape, yes.
And it uses an actual planer on the outside that then she used Pringles tubes and Pringles lids to make the legs. I can't remember what the tops are, but I get Pringles snack boxes. Yeah, that's it.
These here are a pair of custom shoes, nice high heel shoes. It shows you what you can do with your clothing beyond just making shirts and skirts, dresses and aprons, to actually paint a pair of shoes. And these are a pair of high heels that are painted with acrylic and sealed. They're quite beautiful, actually.
So maybe you've been inspired to get some fan-made things going on in your collections. Again, internet's a great place to start. Etsy.com, it's over 13,000 items at any given time. You can do online craft searches, and you can go through forums and discussion groups like Rebel Scout to see what people have, maybe inquire about some things that you'd like to add.
And conventions are a great place to get fan-made items. During this convention, we have a puppet here. Also, during this convention, I was able to pick up this fan-made Ewok mom with a baby, and with it actually came a love letter. And it is vintage, and the girl that made it gave it to her boyfriend, and it was something that he could always remember her by. And she had made 3, one for herself, one for him, and then she said in the letter that she sent one to Kenna. So, and actually I found this in somebody's booth here at the show. Picked it up.
She aced me out of it.
Yep, and then the little baby comes out. Very cute.
So conventions, you never know what you're going to find at a convention, so just keep your eyes peeled. Art exhibits are a great place to go. I mentioned the Stitch Wars exhibit at the very beginning. Keep your eye out, because they do Star Wars craft exhibits from time to time. It's just a matter of luck of the draw, going online, finding them. Most of the time they will sell those things online, because they know locally they might not have enough people interested to buy it, so sometimes you can win out.
Art exhibits are no longer just in the realm of the art gallery. The exhibits do offer their items online.
And they're not always just painted items. Sometimes they're plush items, sometimes they're sculptures.
And the other place, one of my favorite places to get craft items are from friends. We give them as gifts to each other.
We have our mess today because of Anne.
Yes,
We got Felties because of Anne. Pays to have friends that like to craft. Holiday events and parties, I mentioned my collecting group locally has a holiday event, and we have a gift exchange every year, and it's quite a long deal now. We have over 60 gifts, and it takes about 5 hours of swapping out to get what you want, but over half the items usually are handmade, and they're highly coveted prizes. And of course, the 18th is here, and we can craft for any occasion.
Absolutely.
And you brought furlers.
Oh, yeah, I brought perlers, so if you want to craft with me next door, you can.
During our Q&A, yes. For making handmade items, there's 2 books we mentioned, the Star Wars Craft book by Loney Burton and the 1,000 Collectibles book by Steve Sansweet and Ann Newman. The Star Wars collectible book that Steve's made, I think over half the content in there is handmade collectibles, so quite a good chunk of it is, just like the things on display downstairs are. So it's a great place to get inspired and see, oh, someone made something that's felt, I can make this. Pinterest is a growing thing in popularity. It's a site that's basically of ginormous bulletin boards. You can go on there and see what other crafters are looking at.
If you knit or crochet, you may have heard of Ravelry.com. It's a website targeted for that particular craft. But they often have different contests and games and groups, and Star Wars is a common theme on that. You can search that website to see all the Star Wars related items people have made.
And for googly eyes and fun fur and all the fabrics you could ever imagine, craft stores are always an awesome place to get started. I was inspired to make Admiral Akbar googly eye pins because I saw yellow googly eyes, so you never know what inspiration might strike when you're walking down the craft aisle. Crafters, a great website that has a lot of geeky DIY instructions on how to make things. It's a good place to go. I guess we'll open up for questions.
Yeah,
Any questions? Any questions?
So the question's on licensing and making things by hand and selling.
I've heard some people small notes after with the Hello Kitty Star Wars.
Yes.
There was some issues with that, but they're now able to.
Yes, there was a group that were making things called Hello Wars, which is Hello Kitty Star Wars mashup. And yeah, Lucasfilm did go after them. I think if you have a bigger operation where you're making thousands and thousands of items and you have a dedicated website, you're probably going to get singled out, unfortunately.
Like more of a handmade versus
Right. The Hello Kitty items were completely mass-produced.
Singularly
handmade versus mass-produced, there's a difference.
Okay.
Other questions?
I've never received a cease and desist order. Yet.
Neither have I. Yet.
Any other questions? Great.
Well, thank you for coming.